Hello, good evening. My name is Ryan Sloan, and welcome to episode 4 of The Gear Cage. And today we're going to be talking about wireless microphones 201. So we're going to go a little bit beyond what we talked about in the 101 class. But just for quick review, let's talk about that one more time just so everyone is on the same page. One, the transmitter. Oftentimes it's going to be either a vocal microphone or a lavalier set like I'm wearing here. Two, the capsule itself. That is what's going to transmit the sound in the case of a wireless system. So you can actually pull the top of a microphone capsule off, especially on a Shure system, and get a different sound. So that's one of the cool things you can do with those particular systems. We also talked about the wireless receivers, like this Shure SLX system. This actually receives the input signal from the transmitter, connects through two antennae on the back. Remember, we talked about diversity wireless and what that means through the antennas. And then the audio output here, the XLR output on the back of the unit, goes directly to your console or to your recording source or what have you. We also talked about some of the various antenna available, be it quarter wave, half wave, or more directional paddle antennas like this one from Audio-Technica. So those are things that are involved with wireless systems, certainly. And then the last thing we talked about was the difference between various types of microphones. You might remember we talked about analog systems like this Shure SLX system. It's a more traditional system. We talked about digital wireless systems like the Line 6 XDV75 series. And we even talked about hybrid systems like the Shure QLXD that use digital technology with normal operating frequency ranges to give you the benefits of digital paired with the benefits of using traditional frequencies as opposed to the 2.4 gigahertz or 900 megahertz frequency ranges. So we talked about all of that. Now today it's time to go a little bit further than that and actually talk about building a wireless system, be it more run-of-the-mill with just a few channels or more complex with larger channel counts. So the first question you're always going to ask yourself is, how many channels do I actually need? And this is a critical part because planning for a system with 5 or 6 channels versus a system with 30 or 40 or 50 channels is vastly different. So first of all, let's say you are building a system with just 5 or 6 channels. You can actually do that with just about any brand, just about any series, be it Shure BLX series, Shure SLX, QLXD, Audio-Technica systems, no problem. Sennheiser G4 wireless, no problem there. Basically anything reputable on the market's going to get the job done. Now, what I'm not saying is that you can just set up a system willy-nilly or however you want and have it work. There are a few things you should never do when it comes to setting up a wireless system, so make sure you write this part down. Step 1, always keep line of sight with the system. That means that your antenna needs to actually be within visible range of the transmitter unit. So basically the transmitter can see the antenna that it's transmitting to at all times. You don't want to put that behind a concrete wall or barriers or just in an area where it's not going to have a clear line of sight. That'll make your system not work as well. Another thing that often gets overlooked in these systems is the proximity to in-ear systems. So if a wireless microphone system works by transmitting your vocal here to a receiver, an in-ear system works the exact opposite way. The transmitter sits in the rack and broadcasts out to your in-ear body pack. Now the power that it's broadcasting at is dramatically more than your microphones are transmitting at. So if you do keep an in-ear system right next to a traditional wireless system, you're probably going to get some interference and dropouts. Now you can keep the receiver and transmitter close as long as you do remote the antenna. So that's a critical point to make. But by and large, make sure you keep those units separate if at all possible. Now, if you do need to get 30 or 40 channels, you're going to have to get a little bit more complex and a little bit deeper into your planning. And there are softwares that we're actually going to talk about in future episodes, but one is called Wireless Workbench from Shure. It's a free software application that you can download. We'll put the link on the screen actually right now so you can download that and get started with that. But that will allow you to analyze your area and see what frequency spectrum you have available. So that brings us to another topic here that we'll call maximum wireless system deployment. So that means in a given area, what is the maximum number of systems that we can accurately deploy? And this does actually change based on the type of wireless system that we're using. For instance, a Shure QLXD system will allow you to get about 4 to 5 systems in the same amount of frequency space that just one Shure SLX system takes. So let that sink in for a second. That means that if you were to use 4 Shure SLX systems in a given place, you could be potentially utilizing up to 20 Shure QLXD systems. That's just a staggering number that really adds up. So if you're a church that's using 10, 20, 30, 40 channels of wireless, you can do that math and start to see how you can eat up all of your available frequency space very, very quickly. So that's a critical thing to keep in mind. Again, that software program is called Wireless Workbench. It's completely free, and it actually does work with competitive products. So Sennheiser, Audio-Technica, all those products will actually be able to pull into the software and map out for you. So it's an invaluable tool from our friends at Shure. Now, another thing you can do is get a frequency analyzer. And I'm going to put a picture and a link to one here now from RF Venue that you can get that will actually scan your room actively and look at the broader frequency spectrum. So from there, you'll be able to see gaps where you can actually put wireless systems reliably. So again, between the Wireless Workbench software and the frequency scanner, those are critical tools if you're deploying any more than, let's say, 10 or 12 channels in 2019. And it might not be as critical if you're in, say, the middle of Nebraska or Iowa, but if you're in a city like Miami, San Francisco, LA, New York, you absolutely need to be looking at this because it's getting more and more difficult all the time to deploy wireless systems. All right, so we've talked about that. We've talked about what the frequency space looks like. And now our last kind of part or question on this part of the video here is the design of the system itself. And we did talk a little bit about that here. So we did talk about using the frequency allocation tools to see how much available frequency spectrum you have. So if you're in an area that's not as populated, it doesn't have as many TV stations, and you have more free air available, then luckily you're able to use more entry-level systems. So that could mean a Shure BLX system or an entry-level Audio-Technica or Sennheiser system that costs less, but generally gives you less in the way of features or expandability options potentially. So that is the good news if you do this frequency check and it checks out and you're in the clear. The bad news is if you are in one of the more populated metro areas and you do have less frequency spectrum available, then you will have to plan accordingly with your budget as you purchase the wireless systems. What this typically means is that you do need to get a higher end system like, again, a Shure QLXD, ULXD, or an Axient digital system, or something that has the capacity for very, very large channel density and channel counts. Now, this is something that only you know, but keep in mind, let's say you're looking for 10 today, that doesn't mean you won't want to upgrade to 15 later. So always keep the future in mind too, and make sure you give yourself plenty of headroom and don't back yourself into any corners. Because the last thing you want to do is buy 10 or 15 channels of wireless and have them become obsolete in a few years because of improper planning. If you do have any other questions about wireless systems, make sure you leave them in the comments or send us a message. We're always happy to help out with any questions you have and any wireless deployments. We'll go further into this in other videos. Before we go though, I do want to touch on one more thing that's very important, and we will also talk about this more in depth later too, but that is antenna distribution. Now, antenna distribution is effectively having the wireless signal go and connect to a box that has one set of antennas that distributes to all of your wireless systems. So the UA844, I believe, is the part number from Shure that I commonly use for this. So you can basically put a set of antennas up and feed bank after bank of units, be it 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 systems. You can feed them in a variety of ways, building a matrix or hooking them up directly to just a few units. So we're actually going to do that in a one-on-one video here coming up, but it's something very important to know when building a wireless system. So definitely research that and put that on your list as well. Again, that's the Shure UA844, I believe. That's going to wrap it up for this particular video. If you found this video helpful and you want to check out our other videos, please do subscribe. We really appreciate that. And again, be sure to let us know if you have any questions. My name is Ryan Sloan, and we'll see you next time on The Gear Cage.